I'm Ashley Lawson. I'm associate professor of English at West Virginia Wesleyan College. My specialty is American literature and modernist women writers of the earliest 20th century. And I chose this profession because I knew I wanted to read and think about things and teach. And I'm interested in art history and history in general, and literature gave me a way to access all of that. I like that I get to live other lives. I get to have other experiences without ever having to go anywhere. I like to learn new things, and I think learning new things through stories sometimes is the most efficient and interesting way to do that.
How do you feel about like visual aids and like pictorial elements within novels?
I think that the images are often as important as the language, and I think it gives you a different way to read. So you read the images just like you read text, and the images and the language interact with each other. So there may be an ironic relationship, there may be a literal relationship, but it forces the reader to engage with the text in a way that they may not with language that they're used to seeing the words on a page in black and white.
Oh well.
I tend to skew towards minimalism as opposed to the sort of photorealistic style. I think that there's more room for artist interpretation in minimalism because of their choice about what to include, what not to include. But just like prose style, I think images have a certain style to them that's important to identifying an author's personality. I love children's literature still, and I still buy children's books because I do think they tell the same kind of stories that adult books do. I don't necessarily identify with, but one of my favorite books that includes images and words is Alison Bechdel's Fun Home. It's a coming of age story of a young woman and dealing with her dad's experience as a closeted gay man, and her experience coming out. And I just think she tells it in a way that's very literary and but also very accessible and very identifiable, even if you haven't had those same experiences.
How
I think Bechtel does a good job of using words and images to complement one another. So it's not like she wrote a story and then added the pictures afterwards, or vice versa, that she created the pictures and then added words. She thinks of them as sort of cohabitating. And so I think the images will either contradict or elaborate on the story that she's trying to tell. And I think since it's such a personal story, she's able to tell it in a way that feels true to her, who her experiences in comics. You know, that she's able to tell her story in a way that feels very original and truthful.
My name is Carol Bowman. I'm a librarian. I've worked here since 1976. I enjoy working with students. I like learning new things, and if you do science fiction, it's everybody else's imagination. Fantasy literature is everybody else's imagination. And romance novels, escapism. Comedy is escapism, so I think maybe I like colored illustrations just because it makes them more three dimensional to me. If they're just black and white, they're just eh. I like where the wild things are, just because the monster on the front's got big teeth. But if you read that book to kids, they love it. It doesn't scare them. So maybe the illustrations are just a little bit beyond. If the illustrations are really good, they can spark imagination in children and in adults. So maybe if this is an illustration that says it's another world, okay, like say Dune, and you're reading a book about Dune. That's science fiction, and I'm not really good about visualizing other worlds and other creatures and stuff. So in those kind of instances, the illustration really helps me.